Saturday was the one night the whole family sat down together. Not Sunday. Sunday was church clothes and careful behavior. Saturday was different. Saturday was the end of the week and the weight of it, and in working-class homes across this country, in the mill towns and the coal camps and the tenement flats, Saturday dinner meant sausage. Not steak, not roast. Sausage. What the butcher had left. What a mother could stretch into a hot meal for 7 people on $1.40. The food industry will tell you the 1950s were prosperous. For half of America, Saturday dinner told a different story, a truer one. These are 25 of those meals, one for every kind of family that sat down on a Saturday night and didn't waste a thing. Number 25, sausage and kraut skillet. 1 pan, 40 minutes. The sausage links went in first, turning slowly in their own fat until the skin tightened and split just slightly at the edges. Then the kraut, a full can, 10 cents, drained but not rinsed, because the brine was flavor and German grandmothers in Ohio and Wisconsin and Missouri did not throw away flavor. The whole thing simmered together until the kraut went amber at the edges and the sausage soaked up that sour bite. It fed 6 people. The whole pan cost under 50 cents in 1955. Today we call it choucroute garni, serve it in French bistros with a sprig of thyme on top, and charge $28 a plate. The recipe hasn't changed, only the accent has. Number 24, sausage gravy over biscuits. This was not breakfast food. Understand that clearly. In Appalachian hollows and Ozark Hill communities throughout the 1950s, sausage gravy over biscuits appeared on the Saturday supper table when the paycheck ran short and there were still 4 days until payday. Bulk pork sausage, 25 cents a pound. A cup of flour, 2 cents. Whole milk if you had a cow, canned milk if you didn't. The sausage browned in the skillet. The flour went in and cooked in the fat until it smelled faintly of something toasted. The milk came in slow, stirred constantly, thickening into something pale and flecked with black pepper and broken meat. Grandma just called it making do. She was right. Everything she knew was right. Number 23, red beans and smoked sausage. In Louisiana and the Mississippi Delta, and the piney woods of East Texas, dried red beans were never just Monday food. They were infrastructure. A pound of dried red beans cost 12 cents in 1953. A link of smoked sausage added 18 cents. Together they fed a family through Saturday dinner and into Sunday lunch without apology. The beans cooked low and long until they broke down at the edges and thickened their own pot liquor into something almost creamy. The sausage went in sliced, releasing smoke into the broth. Red beans and pork together form a complete amino acid profile, every essential protein the body requires, from 2 ingredients that together cost 30 cents. Grandma didn't know the science. She knew the meal was enough. She was right. Number 22, sausage and potato hash. In the coal mining towns of West Virginia and eastern Kentucky and southwestern Pennsylvania, the cast iron skillet never fully cooled. 5 pounds of potatoes cost 19 cents in 1952. Bulk sausage, 25 cents. The potatoes went in diced, not peeled. The skins held nutrients, and nobody had time for peeling, pressing flat against the hot iron until they crusted dark on the bottom. The sausage broke apart into the potatoes. The fat from the meat became the oil for everything else. 1 skillet, 1 burner. Dinner for the whole shift. This was not a recipe. This was a system. These women understood cast iron and rendered fat, and the chemistry of a hard crust better than any cooking school ever trained a chef to understand it. That knowledge is gone now, replaced by non-stick pans that need replacing every 18 months. That is not progress. That is a planned substitution. Number 21, sausage stuffed peppers. In the Italian immigrant neighborhoods of Chicago and Cleveland and Pittsburgh, Bell peppers appeared on Saturday when the garden still had them, or the market was selling them cheap at the end of the week, 6 for 15 cents in the fall of 1954. The filling was Italian sausage, 30 cents, mixed with yesterday's rice and whatever herbs grew in the window box. They baked in a shallow pan of tomato water until the peppers softened, and the tops of the filling went brown and the whole kitchen smelled of pork fat and oregano. This was what Italian grandmothers made when they couldn't afford ground beef. Today, fast casual chains sell deconstructed stuffed pepper bowls for $14. They removed the pepper. They kept the price. Number 20. Sausage and cornbread casserole. In rural Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama, this dish had no name because it needed none. Everyone knew what it was: bulk sausage browned in the iron skillet. Cornbread batter, cornmeal, egg, buttermilk, poured directly over the top of the hot sausage without removing it from the pan. Into the oven. 30 minutes. The batter seeped down around the meat and cooked into something between a bread and a pudding, dense at the bottom and golden on top. A pan like this fed 8 people for under 40 cents total in 1956. Cornmeal and pork fat together provided sustained energy for farm labor that a modern protein bar cannot replicate at 30 times the cost. One vessel, one meal. Nothing transferred, nothing wasted, nothing explained. Number 19. Kielbasa and cabbage boil. In the Polish mill towns, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit, Buffalo, Saturday's pot went on the stove in the morning. A head of cabbage, 8 cents. A pound of kielbasa, 32 cents. Onion, carrot, a bay leaf, black pepper, enough water to cover. The kielbasa released its smoke slowly into the broth. The cabbage went translucent and sweet. This pot fed dinner Saturday and lunch Sunday, and it cost 40 cents, and it was made by women who had carried the recipe from Krakow and Łódź and Poznań in their memory because there was no room in the luggage. Here's what the food industry doesn't want you to know. In the late 1950s, Oscar Mayer and other processors began marketing Kielbasa-style products to these same communities, cheaper, blander, shelf-stable links that replaced the real thing from the butcher. By 1965, most families in those neighborhoods had switched, not because the product was better, because the advertising was louder. Number 18. Sausage and white bean stew. In the New England mill towns, where Italian and Portuguese immigrants ran the looms and the dye vats, Saturday morning meant beans going into the pot. Dried navy beans, 10 cents a pound. Sausage scraps from the butcher, the end pieces, the odd cuts, 15 cents went in 2 hours later. Garlic, a can of tomatoes, rosemary from a pot on the fire escape. By 6 o'clock, the beans had absorbed everything around them, and the broth had thickened to something you could stand a spoon in. Today we call it Tuscan white bean soup and charge $16 a bowl in restaurants that have exposed brick and no working class history whatsoever. Number 17. Fried bologna with mustard gravy. Bologna was sausage. Working-class families in Indiana and Ohio and rural Missouri knew it and were not ashamed of it. A pound of bologna cost 19 cents in 1955. You cut it thick, scored the edges so it wouldn't curl, and fried it in a dry pan until the flat face blistered and browned and smelled of smoke and pork and something almost caramelized. The mustard gravy was pan drippings, a spoon of yellow mustard, a splash of milk, a pinch of flour. It came together in 2 minutes over the residual heat. Here's what the food industry doesn't want you to know. By the early 1960s, bologna was deliberately repositioned in advertising as children's food. Smaller packages, softer messaging, cartoon imagery specifically to make adults ashamed to buy it. It worked. A generation of working men stopped eating what had fed them. That is not progress. That is a class erasure disguised as a marketing strategy. Number 16. Sausage and dirty rice. In Cajun, Louisiana, and the Gulf Coast communities of southeast Texas, dirty rice was never a side dish on Saturday. It was the meal. Rice, 8 cents a pound. Pork sausage and chicken livers combined, under 30 cents total. The livers cooked down and almost disappeared into the fat, turning the rice the color of dark earth. That's where the name came from. The sausage broke apart through it. An onion and bell pepper and celery, the Holy Trinity, went in with everything. Grandma just called it Saturday rice. She wasn't describing a cuisine, she was describing a fact. Liver and pork together deliver an iron density that almost no modern meal can match at any price. The women who built this dish were not working from a nutrition chart. They were working from generations of knowledge about what kept a body strong through a 6-day work week. Number 15. Smothered sausage and onions. In black working-class communities from Birmingham to Chicago to Detroit, smothered sausage was Saturday's centerpiece. Pork links, 28 cents. 2 large onions, 5 cents. The onions went into the pan in the sausage fat and cooked down, not browned, smothered, which means covered and slow, stirring occasionally until they collapsed into something soft and sweet and almost translucent. The gravy that formed was nothing but fat and onion juice and a little flour. No stock, no seasoning packet, no instructions from a can. This was technique. These women understood heat and time and the chemistry of alliums in fat the way a trained chef understands a beurre blanc. The difference is that nobody wrote it down, nobody taught it in a school, and it died with the women who held it. Number 14. Sausage and egg Saturday scramble. On the Great Plains, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, the Dakotas farm families kept chickens, and eggs were never just morning food. A dozen eggs cost 60 cents in 1953. Bulk sausage, 25 cents. Together they fed a family of 5 for Saturday supper and left change from $1. The sausage went in first, broken into small pieces. The eggs went in beaten, folded slow over low heat until they were just set, not rubbery, not wet, but exactly between. Eaten with toast from bread baked earlier in the week. Eggs for supper wasn't desperation on a Saturday night. It was freedom. The one meal of the week where nobody had to pretend the table was something it wasn't.
Number 13. Sausage stuffed acorn squash. In rural New England and the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the lake country of Michigan, fall meant squash, acorn squash from the garden, or 6 cents at market. Bulk sausage, 25 cents, mixed with an onion and a handful of breadcrumbs from the end of last week's loaf. The squash halved, seeded, filled, baked face up until the flesh went soft and the filling browned on top, and the whole thing smelled of sweet gourd and savory pork and something faintly smoky from the oven's wood heat. Today, this exact dish, unchanged, appears on the menu of farm-to-table restaurants in every major American city as a seasonal entree at $13. The farm-to-table movement rediscovered in 2010 what farm families never abandoned before 1960.
Number 12. Pork sausage and applesauce plate. The Pennsylvania Dutch had understood sweet and savory for 200 years before food magazines invented the phrase. In Lancaster County, in the Shenandoah Valley, and the Carolina Piedmont, Saturday supper in the 1950s regularly meant pan-fried sausage links, alongside a bowl of home-canned applesauce nearly free, made from windfalls in September, put up in jars that lined the cellar shelf. The contrast was the point. The salt and smoke of the sausage against the cool sweetness of the apple. No sauce made in a commercial kitchen has replicated it because the applesauce was made from real apples, cooked soft with a strip of lemon peel, not from concentrate and corn syrup. She was right. Everything she knew was right. Number 11. Sausage and turnip greens pot. In the tenant farming communities of rural Georgia and Mississippi and Alabama, the sausage was never the centerpiece. It was the seasoning. An end piece of smoked sausage, 10 to 15 cents from the butcher, sometimes less, went into a pot of turnip greens with water and a pinch of red pepper. The sausage gave the greens their depth. The greens gave the broth its color. Turnip greens contain more calcium per cup than a glass of whole milk, more vitamin K than almost any food available to a 1950s working-class family at any price. The women who grew them and cooked them and ladled them into bowls didn't read nutrition journals. They read their families, who was pale, who was tired, who needed feeding back to strength. This was not poor food. This was medicine that happened to taste like Saturday. Number 10. Sausage and noodle bake. In the Czech and Slovak immigrant communities of Nebraska and the Texas Hill Country and southern Minnesota, this was the casserole before casseroles had a reputation to defend. Egg noodles, 10 cents. Pork sausage, 29 cents. 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, 12 cents, which in 1955 was not a shortcut. It was a pantry staple that stretched the liquid without adding another pot. The noodles went in parboiled, the sausage browned and broken, the soup diluted with a half can of water, combined in a baking dish, and cooked until the top went golden and the edges bubbled. Campbell's Soup Company ran advertisements beginning in 1955 specifically designed to frame this kind of cooking one-can casseroles as modern and easy, subtly positioning the can as a replacement for scratch cooking rather than an addition to it. Within 10 years, 3 techniques disappeared: how to make a cream sauce, how to reduce stock, how to build a braise. The can ate the knowledge. Number 9. Sausage and sweet potato supper. In black communities throughout the South and the border states, sweet potatoes and pork were not a Thanksgiving combination. They were a weekly truth. Sweet potatoes, 5 cents a pound, roasted in the same pan as sausage links until the potato edges caramelized in the pork fat and the sausage skin went dark and tight. The science arrived later. Beta-carotene, the nutrient that makes sweet potatoes orange, absorbs dramatically better in the presence of fat. The pork fat in that pan was not indulgence. It was the delivery mechanism for the most important nutrient in the vegetable. Grandma didn't know the mechanism. She knew the meal tasted right and the children grew up strong. That knowledge was not ignorance. That was a different kind of science. Number 8. Sausage and sauerkraut perogi boil. In the Polish and Ukrainian communities of industrial Pennsylvania and upstate New York, Saturday wasn't just a meal, it was a production. Children were assigned stations at the kitchen table on Saturday afternoon, one to roll, one to fill, one to fold and press the edges of the perogi. The filling was mashed potato and sauerkraut. The Kielbasa boiled separately and sliced thick. Homemade perogi cost roughly 4 cents each to make in 1954. You could not buy anything at any restaurant for 4 cents. You could not buy anything at 4 cents that tasted like this or that carried what this carried: the afternoon labor of children learning something with their hands, the smell of boiling dough, the sound of a kitchen working at full capacity because Saturday required it. Number 7. Sausage and lentil soup. In the Italian and Greek and Eastern European neighborhoods of the urban Northeast, dried lentils were not health food. They were Saturday food, 9 cents a pound. Italian sausage, 30 cents. A can of crushed tomatoes, a head of garlic, dried thyme. The lentils broke down slowly over 2 hours into a broth that was thick and dark and tasted of earth and smoke and pork. The sausage sliced into rounds, each one leaving a ring of orange fat on the surface of the soup. Lentils and pork together provide one of the most complete protein and iron combinations available outside of red meat alone. Families eating this soup every Saturday in 1955 were not nutritionally deficient. They were nutritionally precise without knowing the terminology. Today we call it artisanal lentil soup with house-made sausage and charge $14. Number 6. Smoked sausage and mustard greens. In the Appalachian communities of eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina and southwestern Virginia, mustard greens were bitter and sharp, and the sausage was smoky and fat, and together they made something neither could make alone. A smoked sausage end piece, 12 cents, went into a deep pot with a mess of mustard greens, water, and a pinch of sugar to cut the bite. No recipe existed. This was transmitted hand to hand across generations, not written, not measured, adjusted by smell and color and the sound of the simmer. The bitterness of mustard greens against the depth of smoked pork fat was a flavor profile that took 200 years of Appalachian cooking to refine. It died when the women who held it stopped being asked to teach it. Number 5. Sausage and hominy stew. Two entirely different American communities arrived at this same meal from different directions. In Mexican-American households across Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, pork and hominy in a chili broth was pozole, ancient, ceremonial, profound. In Appalachian communities, sausage and canned hominy simmered together in a simple pot were just what you made on Saturday when the cornmeal was low. A can of hominy, 10 cents. Pork sausage, 25 cents. Dried chiles, 3 cents. Together, under 40 cents, in two traditions that never spoke to each other, producing the same meal. This was not a fusion trend. This was parallel genius. Two grandmothers on opposite sides of the country who never met, who knew things about pork and corn that no food scientist has yet improved upon. Number 4. Pan-fried sausage with wilted lettuce salad. In the German and Swiss farming communities of Ohio and Indiana and rural Missouri, nothing from the garden went to waste on Saturday, not even lettuce at the end of the season. A head of leaf lettuce grown so free, the sausage fried in the pan. When the sausage came out, the drippings stayed. A splash of cider vinegar went into the hot fat, a pinch of sugar, a little mustard, and that dressing poured hot over the torn lettuce, which wilted immediately under the heat. Here's what the food industry doesn't want you to know. Kraft Foods launched its bottled dressing campaign in the early 1950s with a specific argument that homemade dressings were inconsistent and time-consuming. The campaign worked. By 1960, the technique of using pan drippings as a dressing had nearly vanished from American home cooking. They sold you a bottle. They took the pan. Number 3. Sausage and cornmeal mush skillet. In Appalachian homes and across the rural Midwest, cornmeal mush was not a breakfast curiosity. It was a Saturday supper foundation. Cornmeal, 3 cents a cup. Cooked thick with water and salt, poured into a shallow pan to set, then sliced into rectangles and fried in sausage fat until the outside went hard and golden and the inside stayed soft and steaming. Bulk sausage, 25 cents, fried alongside it. The whole skillet fed a family of 6 for under 30 cents in 1957. Today we call it polenta, serve it in small portions on a wooden board at farm-to-table restaurants, and charge $15. Grandma just called it Saturday supper. She made it without a recipe in a skillet that her mother had given her, and she never once considered that it was anything other than dinner.